You commenters asked for it, so now you're gonna get it. Today we're doing all about strat calling for beginners in the battle for Gilneas RBG. This video is dedicated to gamers who are patient and supportive of new and still learning strat callers. So, a few weeks ago I did a video that made a big fuss about when you start a group, let everybody know what kind of group it's going to be and what they can expect. So here's what you can expect from this video. This is not going to be the recipe for success for all your RBGs. This is not going to be the strat that you should call every time. There's a lot of people out there that really like that sort of thing. They latch on to the recipe for success that they think all the pros are using. And the thing about that is that if everybody does the same thing, and then they all get up to the same RBG CR, and then they're playing against the same teams all the time, doing the same strats, you know what happens? Strat doesn't matter anymore. You're all doing the same thing. It's like RNG and who can mash their buttons faster or cheat. It just loses all its pizzazz. And the people that get ahead of those people are the ones that actually understand why those strats were good in the first place, and they know how to tweak them just a little bit here and there on the fly so that they can do better at a moment's notice. So my goal for this video is not to be so detailed that by the next expansion or the next patch it's all obsolete, but to give you enough of an idea about the map, about the geography, and about some common strats and some common openers, maintenance strats, and resets that you can figure it out for yourself, that you can modify things for different comps, that for different play styles. You can change it depending on what type of group I'm running with, whether they're good at team fights or really good at just following instructions, or maybe it's just a newbie group just out to have fun. I'll change it up a bit. There is no secret recipe for winning all the time in this game. There really isn't. Not consistently anyways. There are, however, recipes that are generally better than others, and we'll touch on some of those a little bit. So, to get started, I'm going to be talking from a strat caller's point of view, from the horde side, because that's what I do. And we're going to be looking at maps from top down. I've drawn a bunch of arrows, and I color them red whenever I'm going to be talking about routes in particular. But to start, this opener screen here with all the white arrows on it, I've gone through, and in general you could say that these are the most common routes that most people open with. And so just to kind of get on the same page in terms of vocab, the area in the middle that's kind of a hill or mountain between Lighthouse and Mines, I call it a mountain, and I'm going to call it a mountain throughout this video. There's a spot kind of in the middle where a buff appears on the horde side near Mines. That's called I'm going to call that the buff hut, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on. And then of course Lighthouse, Waterworks, and Mines you already know about. Other than that, there's I'll be talking about going the back way, either from Mines to Waterworks or from Mines to Lighthouse. Those are common routes. That's what, if I say back way, buff hut, mountain, you know what I'm talking about. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say the opener or the maintenance or the reset, I did another video that's strat calling for beginners, and I'll link it up above in the cards. And I encourage you to go check that out and come back to this video, because this is really kind of the second iteration of strat calling for beginners, where I'm actually talking about a particular map, and I do plan to go through each of the maps one at a time, but you want to start with that first one because I go over some fundamental vocab and a way of thinking about strat calling. So let's talk about all these different ways that you can do your opener. You're starting at the ship, being horde. And now I've colored a bunch of the routes in red. These are ones that sometimes people do, and sometimes I even call out a strat that'll have people following those routes to get to either Lighthouse or Waterworks. But more often than not, they're not my go-to openers. And I'll explain why First, I want to go through the white routes, which are, you can go everybody to Lighthouse, or you can go everybody to Mines, or you can do a split. And I'm going to talk about those, and then we'll talk about why I kind of shy away from the other ones on an open. So if you open with everybody going to Lighthouse, there's a few things you got to think about. First off, if you're doing that, you're basically giving the other team, more often than not, Waterworks for free. The other thing you got to think about is that if they did not go everybody to Waterworks, then they left a few behind, or they might be doing the same thing that you're doing, and you're just going to have a clash up on top of the mountain. Or they might have done a split where they sent some people to Mines and some people to Waterworks, and you're going to end up just being behind all along. Because by the time you get to Lighthouse, they will probably have captured Lighthouse and gotten back already, unless you wipe them really quickly. On the contrary, if you go everybody to Waterworks, then think about everything that I just said. If you're the team going to Waterworks, think about if the other team sends their group over to Mines, where you started. You're basically getting backdoored. You'll get Waterworks for free, but if you don't leave enough people back, then whoever you left to guard the base at Mines will probably get overrun fairly quickly, either sap capped on or just blown up. So that's something you got to think about. On the same token, you're running a bit of a risk because they might also send everybody to Waterworks. In that case, you're both running the same strat. You're having a giant team fight at Waterworks. And it comes down to who can team fight better. If your team doesn't team fight well, then you're going to lose, and you got to try something different. And either you figure that out up front, sometimes I'm running a group and I know my team does not team battle terribly well, but they're having fun and it's a good group and they're really good at following strats. I'll change it up. I'll do something like this. Basically, I'll have people sort of group up at this buff hut that I mentioned. It's the hut in front of Mines where there's a buff that shows up. Usually it's a Zerker. And I'll split the entire group into two teams, and I'll leave one at Mines to defend, but then I'll have some people go to Waterworks and some people go to Lighthouse. This has also got its risks, but if you pull it off right, there's a few perks to it. One thing that I like to do is send the majority of the people that are going to Waterworks, I'll send them early because I want to draw the other team to Waterworks. The other team that stays back that's going to Lighthouse, they'll leave a little bit later. They'll take some stealth with them. If you've got a rogue, using a shroud for this over the mountain is great. And sometimes they'll end up having a team fight with the team that's doing the exact same strat that I'm describing, splitting their forces on top of the mountain. Sometimes they'll run into the team's full force on the mountain, in which cases they need to call out really quickly that they found the other team, and the other team needs to basically cap Waterworks and get back to Mines really quickly. Sometimes they'll make it all the way to Lighthouse. The team at Waterworks is working a great distraction, and hopefully they can just stay alive for as long as possible and stop the other team from getting a quick cap on Waterworks if they can. And then the Lighthouse team needs to be able to basically get past whoever is guarding, usually a hunter or a mage or something, either with a sap cap or blowing them up really quickly. This opens you up to hopefully get two bases, and then it's a matter of holding it. So depending on what kind of team you've got, whether they're good in team fights or not, how things are going that night, you might pick any of those types of strats. There's a few others that I'm going to mention that I don't do very often, but they are options. I mean, you could try them. First off is to send everybody kind of straight to the middle and then split off to either Lighthouse or Waterworks. What this does is basically, it's kind of like a juke. You go out in the middle and the other team doesn't quite know exactly where you're going, but hopefully you get to whatever base you want to get to quickly. Now, the one thing that I might do if I'm doing this is send somebody quick like a rogue or somebody that can water walk to go directly to Waterworks and spin, because they're going to send somebody there. But if you send the majority of your team or in the middle of the map, and then you make your decision whether you're going to Lighthouse or Waterworks, then you can kind of get I'd say 5 to 10 seconds, 10 seconds if you're lucky, jump on whoever is sitting the node. And in that case, if a hunter pops his deterrence twice, he can wait long, or he can withstand you for long enough to wait until his group can get back to defend. But it might give you a little bit of an advantage, and they probably won't see that coming. A lot of people like to go around the backside of the mountain, or if they've got DK or some class that can give them water walking, they like to go around along the water out in the ocean. I don't necessarily do this all that much. Sometimes maybe if I'm in a regular BG, I'll do this just for fun. But personally, I don't think it gives you a lot of an advantage. The reality is, unless you're in a shroud or in stealth, you're gonna get seen at the crest of the mountain or coming around the side of the mountain. It's not like you're getting a huge head start by going around the back. Unless they have somebody on the mountain watching, you're not really fooling anybody. Going around the back way to Waterworks, this is a bit of a risky opener. If they don't commit fully to Waterworks and they send people directly to mines from Lighthouse at the beginning, you are really leaving yourself open. But going around the back way is, you can get there almost completely in stealth without even needing the rogue, really. The other risk that you're dealing with is if they get to Waterworks first, you are kind of taking a roundabout backroads path to get there. So if I were to do this, I would probably have a rogue or somebody fast and stealthy to get to Waterworks just to spin, just to make sure that they don't cap it as soon as they get there. And basically this allows you to open up with your team fight, but in sort of an ambush, because you're coming out of they haven't seen where you're coming from and they're not quite sure where to look. If they get there and they see that imagine being the Alliance team in this case, they're approaching Waterworks, they don't see anybody there, they might call that out, and some of them might peel off early to go hit mines or something like that, in which case you can kind of hope to get them on a bit of a split res, or at least if you've sent, say, 8 people to Waterworks and they in the end or they have 4 actually hitting Waterworks because the other 4 kind of peeled off, then you have a bit of an advantage at the beginning. Again, playing with decent players or decent groups, they're going to be in voice chat. They'll call these things out quickly. Don't think that any strat that you do here is going to give you much longer than, say, 10-20 seconds of basically free time with the other team in an advantage sort of position. That said, when you're pulling a strat like this on an open, you need to take advantage of whatever benefit that you're going to derive from that strat. If you send people off to capture a node where there's going to be 3 or 4 of them and just the guard at the node for a good 10-20 seconds, realize you only have 10 to 20 seconds, and they need to be able to communicate well. As a strat caller, you might need to make an executive decision for your team. Tell them when they're going, if you have a cap team going to a base to make the cap while the other team's doing a distraction, let them know you're going for a sap cap, nobody DPSs. Or I call it sap cap, a CC cap. This is me playing a rogue for too long. Or tell them, go there and just full on open up DPS on him. Burn through all the cooldowns, kill that guy as quickly as possible, and loot the body so he doesn't come back too quickly. When things have gone wrong, you need to basically call a reset. And it helps if your team understands a little bit about what's going to happen during a reset. If they understand the concept of a reset, then you're not explaining that mid-fight and you'll be a little bit faster. So in this particular map, I like to set a group up point. I don't try and explain the strat for opener and the reset and the maintenance all at once at the beginning because people just forget, really. They just can't hold that much end play. But I'll call an opener and I'll say, and if things go badly, the reset point will be, or the group up or rendezvous point will be. And for me, as a horde player, I like to set it as the buff hut. I say, if things are going badly, we're going to call a reset. Everybody's just going to calm down. Yeah, they're going to get a few more points, but the point here is to get people to be calm. That is that is more than half the battle, is getting people to calm down and just group up, not trickle in anywhere. Over and over and over again, I will sit there in chat saying, don't trickle in, reset, don't trickle in, group up here, don't trickle in, and you gotta say it over and over and over again. This is like what parents and target callers and strat callers all have in common. They have to say everything 3 times at least. So you get everybody to group up, rebuff, calm down a little bit, and then the next hard part is you got to call another strat. Now you might do your opener again, or you might do something a little bit different, but you have one little benefit here, is that you're no longer starting from the ship. You've grouped up somewhere other than a graveyard. So in this case, I've drawn white lines from basically my group up point that I use. Again, they're very similar to what we had with the ship, but it kind of gets rid of a few options. You can basically go over the mountain, you can go around the mountain, you can go over the mountain and juke, you can go around the mountain and juke, or you can go the back way to Waterworks, or you split up and do a combination of those. If you go over the mountain, expect a team fight. At this point, their team has established themselves on both Waterworks and Lighthouse, and you basically are gonna end up doing a team fight wherever you go. Now it helps if you have again, a rogue shroud is probably my favorite tool in this case, but it's on a 5-minute cooldown. If you have rogues as a strat caller, it behooves you to have them call out the cooldowns on their shroud whenever they can. Everything I just said for going from mines to Lighthouse over the mountain, regarding shrouds, regarding team fights, it all applies for going from mines to Waterworks. Same goes for going the back way to Waterworks. I'll also say that, again, if you're sending your entire team via the back way, you're also leaving your back door open. So if they have a stealth team, if they have maybe more than one rogue, and if your base sitter isn't all that aware, you might get backdoored if you do that. I mentioned juking. You can go one way and then suddenly go the other. A lot of teams like doing this. The reality of this, though, is that you're getting really, again, only 5-10 seconds of benefit. If the other team is any good, they're going to see what you're doing as soon as possible. They're going to start balancing out. Now, if it's a YOLO team you're fighting, this is why organized groups like doing this, because they get to stomp all over YOLO teams that are typing out in chat what's happening or what they're seeing, or not even typing for that matter. But if you're going to do a juke like this, be prepared to capitalize on the few seconds of benefit that you get from doing this, and you need to get in there and have a really smart team fight to be able to either kill a target, it doesn't have to be a healer, but kill something smart and CC the rest and cap it real quick if you can. One of my favorites, and yet probably one of the more complex resets to organize on the fly. This works a lot better if you are running with a team that you've run with before, people that know you and have done this before. They understand it, they appreciate it. This is a great strat that I've seen work on several occasions, but it does take a lot more coordination. And that is to group up again at the buff hut. What I like to do when I'm at this buff hut, and I should have said this earlier in the video, is that you don't have everybody sort of loosely grouped up. You want them hiding behind the buff hut because you don't want the team to know which way you're going. A lot of times I will ask my team to stack, like literally stack, mounted up on the stairs of the buff hut. And that's kind of out of the way enough that the other team can't really see them from Waterworks or from the mountain. And I'll have a rogue kind of out in the open, but in stealth, watching to see what the other team is doing and taking the lead in that case. But anyway, back to this strat. You get everybody grouped up, and then you got to split up again into 2 teams. And this is like the opener that I mentioned earlier. When you set up these 2 teams, what you want to specify to these 2 teams is one is going to be the distraction team, and largely you're going to send kind of beefy melee that can spin for days. And the other two, or the other team is going to be maybe one healer and your rogue or some sort of stealth and a lot of CC. And that team is going to be basically the attack team, the cap team, as I call it. And they can either go to a Lighthouse or to Waterworks, either way. The thing about this is that the distraction team needs to leave first. The other team needs to stay hidden behind the Zerker hut. And the point of this whole strat is that you're going to pull, hopefully, the bulk of their team to one node, so that your cap team has better odds of getting a CC or a quick kill on whoever's guarding that other node.
Not too much at work.
Regroup at our Zerker hut. Everybody, Pallies, Monk, everybody, get back to that Zerker hut. Don't trickle in anywhere.
Yo, Shadow Priest, can you dispel in that team fight so I don't...
Yeah. Alright.
Alright, rebuff.
I got the
The way this is going to work, if you're a melee or a healer, you're going to Waterworks now, heal out. If you're range, you're staying with the rogue. Melee and healers, go to Waterworks, start a fight.
Alright, Waterworks, listen to my target course.
Nobody else speaks except for me and the guy that just spoke.
Yeah. Alright. We're gonna go for heals first, so I'm thinking of Monk.
Roll
hop on Windwalker right now.
Roll, I'm going to stealth us over.
E6.
Stay in my shroud.
E6.
Now we
Hop
go.
on Monk. E6.
At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that you don't have to do just the sort of strats that I mentioned throughout this video. You can do variations like this one, where you send maybe a portion of your group and then have them juke over. This is, if they do what I've got here displayed, they're going to draw a lot of attention. And so if you've got a nice sap cap team of mostly stealthers that can go around the backside, then that's a great way of working as well. So once you've got your two bases, you've worked really hard for those bases. So it'd be a pity to just be stupid and lose them for something silly. Have a plan of attack. I did a whole video, I'll link it up in the cards, on the maintenance of your strat and keeping that winning position for the entirety of the game, or as long as possible. But here we're going to talk about maintenance strats, particularly to Battle for Gilneas. Usually the two bases that you end up getting are Waterworks and Mines, if you're Horde again. And usually one thing that you want to do is have sort of a float team. You want to establish a float point. This is where that float team is going to sort of congregate. And if anybody is either not at a base that you own or not floating, then they're being greedy. And if you're playing competitive, if you're playing for fun and you're just stomping all over the other team, then be greedy. You know, have fun. But if you're playing competitive, going for that third base, unless you really need to in order to catch up, it probably isn't worth it. You're stretching yourself too thin, it's ballsy. Stick with two, play it safe, have a float team, have designated people watching each base. What may happen is that they might send their entire team to one base, in which case your entire float team probably needs to go there with one person, probably the designated base sitter, at the other base. If they sent their entire team to Waterworks to have themselves a team fight, then you should also probably have 9 people there defending it as well. That leaves one person, probably a hunter or mage or some class appropriate base sitter at the other node. Now, one thing that might happen is they might send the entire team there and then send, like I mentioned earlier during the resets and the openers, they might have a cap team of stealth or just a portion of their team that you haven't accounted for go to the other base. One thing that I always want to do when I have a sort of float team is use your healers. Healers don't end up playing a lot into strat sometimes. A lot of healers aren't terribly used to being told what to do in terms of strat. They kind of get comfortable just following the team fight around. But if you've got good healers on your team, then you should be directing them, almost micromanaging them during the maintenance phase of any sort of game. One thing that I generally like to do is if there's a main team fight going on, I may use all 3 healers, but I'm going to keep one as the designated peel heal. And other people may be dying during the team fight, but he's going to sit on the periphery of the fight. If it's at Waterworks, he might be in the water. You know, somewhere hard to get to, but easier for him to escape and head back as quickly as possible back to mines. Same goes for if the fight is at mines and Waterworks is the one that's sort of the outline node that's just got one person watching it. I'll have a designated peel heal sitting probably behind the shed or somewhere where you can peel away through that back route easily to assist any inks that are called from Waterworks. If you happen to have mines and Lighthouse, this one's a little bit harder to defend, but it's still possible. It just means that your float point is on top of the mountain and you're gonna have to run a lot further to get between bases. In this case, you might consider, if you can, sending all 3 of your heals to any real team fights going on and then having 2 DPS sitting at base. It depends on how good your heals are and how good your DPS is at spinning a flag. Realize, target callers, I'm talking to you, realize that if you have 2 bases, then you don't need to kill anyone. You do not need to kill healers, you do not need to kill anyone in a team fight. If you are holding the flag or holding the base and not wiping completely, you're winning. That's all you need to do. Play objectively. I'll do a whole nother video, I think, on target calling, different modes of target calling, because I think a lot of target callers get tunnel vision on, oh, just go kill a healer, and then I'll kill another healer. And that's really bad for strat callers sometimes, because you do all this work to get into this nice winning position, and then the target caller just sort of goes ham, and they end up getting a nice ninja cap or something. And you got to do it all again. You're back to the reset phase. So that's all I had for this video. We went through the opener, we went through the reset, we went through maintenance strats. And the idea was to give you enough to think about that you can come up with your own strats and understand how you're going to play this game with different types of groups in different situations. Understand that you're not going to win every one. It's just not that way. RNG happens, life happens, cheaters in this game happen. That stuff is just the nature of the game. But with good strats and with a good team, you can increase your competitiveness and your ability to, in my opinion, your ability to have fun. So I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to learn the game, learn how to play in different situations, and have fun with people who are of the same mindset. And if they're not of the same mindset, then you might want to find other people. But if you liked the vid, give it a thumbs up. Leave comments below. This video was made in response to comments, several comments over weeks, and I put out a new video every week. Subscribe if you enjoy them, and I will see you next time.